Hello and welcome to this afternoon stimulus package update. Today we have lots of news with the Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL grant program, and the potential funding that may go through there, and then today's numbers on the amount of businesses that have actually already been funded. And we have some news with this $2,000 stimulus check that everyone keeps talking about, and a potential program that might come in place of that. There's still a lot of negotiations there, but there's a whole new program to talk about. I'm going to start with small business funding. As you probably know, Republicans are trying to get additional funding for small businesses because the Paycheck Protection Program and the EIDL grant program dried up funding last Thursday. It ran out quick, and there's a lot of businesses that aren't yet funded, so there were some negotiations over the weekend. And basically this is the result of that. Mnuchin said that the proposed new bill will include money for testing, hospitals, small businesses, but not for state and local governments. That's the side that the Democrats wanted. They wanted funding for that, while Republicans wanted money for small businesses. He said that the new deal being defined would allocate $310 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program, setting aside $60 billion of that $310 billion for rural and minority groups, and $60 billion of that would also go towards the EIDL grant program through the SBA. $75 billion would go to hospitals, and $25 billion would go to investing in testing for COVID-19. Mnuchin said that the $310 billion should be sufficient for, all potential small business needs and would reach almost everybody. These numbers haven't been completely finalized. However, Democrats and Republicans are saying that they're going to reach some kind of agreement sometime this week. So everyone having to deal with this is hopeful that there's some kind of agreement coming, very soon. So I decided to do the math on this to see how true it is that almost everyone will receive funding. So let's start with the EIDL program. The additional $60 billion that would be allocated towards that. Let's see, exactly how many people that would reach. So the average EIDL grant as of right now that has gone through, it's about $3,000 because they do that $1,000 per employee, comes out to about $3,000 on average. So if you take 60 billion divided by 3,000, that comes out to about 2 million businesses covered with the EIDL portion of this, which actually is about the amount of number of businesses who have actually applied for this. So that's not too bad. However, with the Paycheck Protection Program, so they'd be looking at an additional $250 billion in funding. The average loan amount through the Paycheck Protection Program is $120,000. So with $250 billion divided by 120,000 equals 2,083,000 businesses that would be funded, an additional 2 million businesses. Now that sounds like a lot, but take this into consideration. That's an additional 2 million businesses funded. 1.7 million businesses have already been funded through, or the funds are allocated for them. They haven't actually received the money, most of them. So that equals 3.7 million businesses. However, there are 30 million small businesses in the United States. So that means that there's just funding for 12.3% of small businesses in the US. So when I think of it that way, not every single business in the US needs money through this program, but 95% of businesses are impacted. So I would think that as soon as this additional money is put in place and able to be allocated, it's going to be gone within a week for sure. Maybe within 3 or 4 days it'll be accounted for. So what I'm getting at here is, if this does go through, there's going to be a rush to get your information in if you don't already have it in, and try and get funding as soon as possible if you own a small business that needs some help to, with this impact. So one thing that made me feel a little bit better about the fact that there's going to be additional funding is this morning, I received notice from 4 different banks that are saying that they're now continuing loan processing because they're looking like it's pretty much definite that additional funding is going to be added. So that is at least good news. We got to be happy that more businesses are actually going to get funding. But at the same time, I feel like if they want everyone to get funded who needs funding, there's probably going to have to be a third round. Like, how long is this going to go on for? It's just, I don't really know what to say exactly. The banks that sent me emails were Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, Cabbage, the online bank, and a local bank called Arizona Bank. They all stated that they're either taking on additional applications or they're going to continue current loan applications because they're so confident that additional funding is going through. So everyone having to deal with this seems to be confident. We'll see exactly what happens in the next few days or to the next week, but I'm at least confident that additional businesses will be funded. Here's a piece of news that I thought was interesting. Shake Shack, the national restaurant chain, actually was given a $10 million Paycheck Protection loan. And if you're not aware exactly the up and ups on Shake Shack, the founder of it, or at least the majority shareholder, his name is Danny Myers. He owns Union Square Hospitality Group, and that is a massive restaurant group. They have over 35,000 employees and thousands of restaurant locations in all sorts of different restaurants that you've probably been to. And they received a $10 million loan for one of their subsidiaries, Shake Shack. And then they got all sorts of flack, once the funding dried up, and they were cited just yesterday saying that they're actually going to return the $10 million loan, which is honorable, stating that the Paycheck Protection Program is confusing and they're just going to go ahead and get capital, extra capital, through an equity transaction in the public markets, like selling stock or something like that. So they actually returned the entire $10 million, which is honorable, but I find it crazy that they were even able to get that loan in the first place. Insane. So some more EIDL news, as I like to put out exactly how many businesses are funded each day. There's some positive news here. As of today, Monday, 4/20, the total number of businesses that have been funded through the EIDL grant program is 7.7%, which is, it's still low, but it's exciting because that's up from just 5.9% the last 2 days. It was 2 days at 5.9%. Now it's at 7.7. This is really exciting. With the Paycheck Protection Program, we're up there too. It's also good news. 7.8% of businesses who have applied for the Paycheck Protection Program have been funded. So we're excited about that. Again, that is up from 5.8% the last 2 days. So I'm glad to hear that we're getting more businesses actually funded from these allocated funds. I think this is going to continue to happen even though funds are dried up. There's still funds there that haven't been sent to businesses. So you might have actually applied, not received any notice, and will still receive funds. Because I'm personally getting more and more confirmation every single day from businesses who've received funding from both programs. So I'm pretty confident there in the fact that there's additional people still getting funding, including myself. I received the EIDL grant last Thursday. I just found out yesterday, which was Sunday, but I received the $10,000 grant for one of my businesses, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm included in that 7.7%. And that's overall, positive news. We're skewing towards the positive today. Things seem to get, slightly better every single day. It kind of has its ups and downs, but there's a slight upward trend. So yeah, I received that deposit last Thursday, $10,000. And let's get on to the stimulus check news. Like I said, there's so much talk about this, the $2,000 a month stimulus proposal that everyone's just going crazy about. That would be absolutely insane if that went through. I've done an entire video on this already, so if you want to know more details on this, you can check that out. I'm going to do just a brief overview right now, just in case you aren't on the up and up on this. The $2,000 a month stimulus check would be a stimulus for every American 16 years or older making less than $130,000 a year annually, or couples earning less than $260,000 a year annually. And this is the adjusted gross income. So quite a few people are going to qualify for that if it goes through. Single filers would receive at least $2,000 a month, and couples would receive at least $4,000 a month. And then on top of that, qualifying families would receive $500 a month per child, up to 3 children. So a family of 3 would receive the same amount as a family of 5. It just stops scaling up after 3 for some reason. Those who had no earnings, were unemployed, or are currently a dependent on someone else's taxes would be eligible for this stimulus, which is really exciting because that dependent issue, in my opinion, was a huge issue on this $1,200 stimulus that disqualified so many people that it just didn't make sense. Why are these people qualified and these aren't? So I'm glad that that is included in here. And another caveat here is those who earned too much in 2018 or 2019, but then had their pay lowered in 2020, could also be eligible for this additional stimulus as long as they submitted 2 months worth of pay stubs. So that's exciting that more people would actually be eligible for this one. However, it's just on the table right now. Nothing is official. If that does end up going through, it's probably going to be a watered down version of it. I think it's a case of like aiming high and then hoping for a middle ground kind of thing. So the second proposal that might actually come in instead of this one is a cancel rent and mortgage payments proposal through the coronavirus emergency. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. A representative from Minnesota, last name Omar, introduced this Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. This act, if approved, would call for a nationwide cancellation of rents and home payments through the duration of the coronavirus pandemic, or up to 1 year. The bill would include full rent payment forgiveness for your primary residence. That's important, primary residence. Full mortgage payment forgiveness for your primary residence, and no accumulation of debt for renters or homeowners. When they say rent, or actually especially mortgage forgiveness, I'm assuming that means that you just don't have to pay for those months. So let's say it went on for 3 months, you don't have to pay your mortgage for 3 months. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that that would make your mortgage then 30 years and 3 months. It wouldn't actually like cover your $2,000, $3,000, whatever your mortgage payment is, and actually go towards your mortgage. I think that you would still have to pay it, it'd just be put on the back end, is my assumption if that did go through. There would be no negative impact on your credit or rental history through this program. It would establish a relief fund for landlords and mortgage holders to cover losses, which is very important. Maybe even if you don't like your landlord, it's important that they don't go under either. It would create an optional fund also to finance the purchase of private rental properties to increase the availability of affordable housing. I find that really interesting and could definitely be an investment opportunity if that is something that goes through. I know a lot of people who do investments in affordable housing and make decent money with that, with government subsidized rents. So that's really exciting. The bill would be retroactive to March 13th of this year and would last for 1 year unless it's extended. Renters and homeowners who made payments during April 2020 would be reimbursed for their payments. The bill would only allow taxpayers to receive coverage for their primary residence. It would not cover second homes, vacation homes, or other non-primary residences. Those who have both a mortgage and also rent a home would have to choose which home they would want to receive financial relief from, which makes sense. If you have 2 homes, I mean, do you really need the relief as much? You definitely don't need relief for 2. It'd be more deserving for a family who doesn't receive it at all, you know, to get funding instead of one family to get 2. So that makes sense. Landlords and mortgage companies would be covered through a fund managed through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the Department of Housing and Urban Development would create a relief fund for lenders and landlords to cover lost rental mortgage payments they would have received. So what do you guys think of these new programs? Which one would you prefer? I personally would prefer that $2,000 a month. It just seems like a lot less messy. I personally own my home, and I just think it would be a pain to have to go through that whole mortgage forgiveness and deal with all that. I think I would rather just receive the money, and then you get to do what you want with the money. You can put it towards rent, you can put it towards anything. That's my personal opinion. I would really be curious to see what your guys' opinion is on this. And also, would you guys like me to do a more detailed video on this rent forgiveness program? There's a lot of details that I didn't exactly cover here. That was just an overview. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. That's all I have for today, for Monday the 20th. Until next time, thanks for watching. Hope you guys get your stimulus checks if you haven't already, and I hope you have a profitable day.